you cannot just send a check and check out.
I know.
And if a company's telling you that just pay us the money and we have a magic pill and it's going to work, oh no. You're going to get a rude awakening, and it's going to happen after you spent tens of thousands of dollars.
Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of DentistMetrics.com. Every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. Hello, ambitious dentists. So today we have with us another return guest on the Start Your Dental Practice podcast. So I believe our current guest was in the first 10 episodes of Start Your Dental Practice podcast. So that was over 100 episodes ago at this point. So we've had we've come a long way since then, and he's one that has been a friend of mine inside the industry for a while. We share a lot of the same aspirations and visions about dentistry, and he's just a really good guy out there looking to help out other dentists. And so I've been happy to call him a friend for all these years. He's one of the first people I really connected with inside of the dental industry. He's helped me out a lot, and so it's really happy for me to welcome back to the show, Jeff Gladnick. So if you're not familiar with Jeff, Jeff is the CEO of Great Dental Websites, which is a website company for dental practices. And it's actually a lot more than that. That's almost a misnomer for me to even say that, because they do so much more for their practices than just giving, helping get a website together. But if you're not familiar with Great Dental Websites, you should get out from underneath that rock. They've got over somewhere around 750 practices they help out with. They're in 5 or 6 countries. Jeff and I were talking about earlier, they're actually in Australia now, having lots of success in Australia and helping out dentists in that area. And they've won the Townie Choice Awards, if you've heard of that, for a couple of years in a row now, I believe. And so, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, pleasure to be back. I remember when you emailed me a couple of years ago, telling me you're starting the podcast. So it's good. I'm happy for you. You had this growth. Company's taken off. Love seeing success like that for people who deserve it.
Yeah, man. So today, the topic of discussion that we're going to be talking about are some of the main questions that dentists are having about their websites in 2019. Some of the questions we may have been answering in 2, 3, 4 years ago, maybe a little bit different in how they may be the same questions, but the answers may be slightly different compared to back then. So Jeff, over the last 3 or 4 years, what all has changed in the world of dental websites? Like, what is it? Do people still get dental websites? Do people still need a website for their practice? And how has that, your answer now changed compared to, a few years ago?
Yeah, I do think you still need a dental website for your practice. And the most common retort for this is, well, no, I don't. I'm just going to have a page on Facebook or something. But we've watched, especially that organization, really clamp down on access to your own audience that you've, and there's a great cartoon, I think, on the oatmeal that really sums it up really well, where Facebook first encourage you to get everybody to like your page. That way you'll be able to reach them. It'll be easier. Everybody's on the same platform. And then once everybody was there, like, all right, now you just need to pay to boost your post so more of your audience can see it. You're like, wait a minute, this is not what I want to do. And so they've become very good at monetizing their platform and making it more of a pay-to-play environment. Google's done that a little bit too, although not with the cold efficiency of Facebook. But I think you need to have your own thing that you can own. And there's a lot of people not on Facebook. And a lot of people getting rid of their Facebook accounts are younger kids who are just starting to come into some money, and their teeth are starting to get old, and they're starting to need and can afford your services. So I don't think that's a good home. I think you still need your own space on the internet, and a website's a good fit for that. As far as the changes over the last 3 years, we it's flipped for more people viewing sites on mobile. All the sites we build are mobile responsive. I'm still kind of I hardly ever see it anymore, but we used to see that as like an option for like price quotes that clients would tell us about. Now it's just kind of standard practice, and it should be. Ads have become more pervasive, and a lot of the environments that we used to use to attract patients for free in, or at least through effort by us or the practice, have become more pay to play. Google AdWords keeps pushing the organic results down for search engine optimization, which is still really effective. But in some cases, you have to pay a little bit to win in those markets. And they've gotten really good at determining that, like hyperlocal searches, more and more searches for dentistry or dental services that used to come up in like the pure organic rankings come up in that little area at the top with the map, and there's only 3 spots there, so it becomes an all or nothing kind of game. And then there's been a bunch of advances in like ROI attribution. We've developed a tool to measure marketing efficiency, and I know there are other companies they've done this too. So dentists now have some tools, better tools than they used to have, to measure exactly how well, or at least more accurately. I don't think you can ever get attribution exact, but their marketing campaigns are doing. Those are the main changes that I've seen.
In terms of how a dentist should view their website, should they be looking at it as simply a marketing tool? Should they be looking at it as something else? I mean,
yeah.
How should dentists be viewing their website and their practice?
Well, they may both be right. I mean, there are people who buy a car to get them from point A to point B, and that's what the car is to them. And there are people who buy a car that, is their pride and joy, that they take to a racetrack, and like that's part of their life and their interests and their friend base. And a car is a very different thing to those two people, and they're both right. I think what a website could be to a practice is something that is the cornerstone of marketing campaigns that produce lots of new patients, that aid in patient referrals. What it often is just an informational brochure that somebody just checked a box and said, I want a website, I have a website, I'm done. And it's like, well, you just bought the car that went from point A to point B. And look, if you have a reliable input system for getting new patients, and maybe you're the only game in town, you have fortunate demographics, you take every insurance or Medicaid, and you don't need to attract patients because you're already overflowing with patients provided from some external source, and you got a good business model and you like it, then maybe that's fine. But if you want more selective patients, more fee-for-service patients, you got to do a little bit more to impress them, because it's a competitive landscape in most areas. And I think the kind of brochure that was kind of phoned in won't get that job done. And I see that very often with clients who tell us like, oh no, I get all of my referrals from word of mouth, and they're not wrong, but when you dig into it, it's a little bit more nuanced. And what you typically find is, well, the person asked like 5 of their friends on Facebook for who to go to, and like 6 or 7 people all chimed in and said, go to these various dentists. Then they researched your website. They looked at that quite a bit. They watched your videos. They read your content. They looked at your before and after cases. They probably read your reviews. And then they came in and said, I was referred by, Sally Jones. And it's like, well, that's not the whole story. Sally Jones just didn't say, go to Dr. Smith, and they just picked up the phone, called Dr. Smith, made an appointment. There's a lot that went into that journey. And that's where a website and marketing can really make or break your ability to win those, what I've called referral contests. Phoning it in won't may get you runner up, but that's not something that's going to be worth anything if you're trying to get a patient.
Yeah, and that really does feel like something that has evolved over the past few years. Is that it's so much more important to have social proof now than I feel like it will. Like a few years ago, it was a pretty it was a pretty forward thinking thing to have social proof on your website, and now it feels like if you don't have some form of social proof, then you're gonna be beaten by someone who does.
Oh, absolutely. And like there's a great study by Bright Local that puts out for how consumers view reviews about businesses. And they started tracking dentistry as an independent category this year. It used to get roped into medicine, but it's always like shocking at how, especially millennials, how trusting they are of reviews. They do need to see more reviews to become trusting, and how skeptical like the older demographic is. And you watch, and it's really also kind of a window into human psychology as you watch people, the group contradict themselves, as especially with the older 55 and up group, where they'll say like, I don't trust reviews. You're like, how many of you rely on reviews for healthcare, which is more important to that demographic? It's like, 43%. You're like, okay, yeah, it's almost half. But millennials will leave reviews for you if you ask. Those reviews are counted just the same as other reviews. You don't know how old people are, so you can kind of like use one section of your patients to generate reviews that will be relied on by another demographic of your client base. It's kind of a funny strategy, but it's true. And people do, even knowing that reviews can be fraudulent or faked. And I have a client every month, probably every week, we get some kind of feedback from one of our clients about some bogus review. And sometimes you can take it down. It's like an ex-staff member that violates Google's terms of service. We pray they will say something racist or sexist or offensive, because you can always get those taken down. We're just praying that they make some sort of bigoted slight. Yeah, it's great. And you're like, this won't be there. It'll be gone in a day. But the only defense is to have lots of positive reviews and to put it in a system. That's what we advise most of our clients to do in areas where it's legal. You can't do that in Australia. Ooh, sorry. Some fire truck or something going by.
Yeah. So, you've got the reviews, you've got on, the website, and, I think where a lot of people get, if they're not getting overwhelmed by this, and then I think they should take a moment to think of why they should be getting overwhelmed by this. But there are so many different pieces of how the website is a hub, from, pay-per-click ads to, from Google or from Facebook or from Instagram or Twitter or wherever it is you're spending your money, to your links to your main website, from whatever pieces of mailers you put out, to your Google SEO, all those different places. All those different places, your strategy is different, and your website has to be able to handle all those different types of things. I mean, is that something that people haven't focused enough on in the past? Because I know there's people out there that will just burn through spend to send them to the wrong message. I mean, one of my favorite stories was when I was starting out. I was doing research on some of my some people in the Arkansas area, and one of the people that I saw was they had it was a dental practice here in Little Rock, and they were spending a bunch of money on implant items, and I did a follow on their link, and it went to a different practice's website.
Oh God, that's you just passed the quality.
Yeah, and it turned out that it was like a local SEO provider that helped both of them, and they'd put the wrong link into the AdWords, and I contacted the doctor and I was like, what's going on with this? And eventually the SEO guy contacted me back and was like, hey, sorry, that was a mistake. And
it's probably an honest mistake, but man, that's an error.
But the question was how long had this been going on? Was what the question was, and I didn't know. But the doctor was very thankful of me bringing that to his attention. So there's just lots of little things like that just you've got to have honed in. You have to have a good member of your team like Jeff to be able to help you with that kind of stuff. But how does that all those different mediums to get to the website, or all those different paths to get to the medium that is the website, how does that affect strategy?
Well, I mean, you're right. And to address your first point, marketing is very complex. And I think if you want to take, we do have some clients that take it all on themselves, but it better be a hobby for you that you really love. You're really into marketing. You happen to be a dentist, and you want to spend hours on the weekends diving through analytics reports, trying to eke out another couple percent, because that's what we do, and that's what we enjoy in this profession. Or you're going to have somebody in your staff who has the same passion. Maybe it's your spouse or a family member. especially with family member, that rarely we see gets executed really well, but sometimes it does. Or you hire somebody, you're a big enough practice where you hire a marketing coordinator and they can do this. But otherwise, you do kind of need a partner if you want a really complex, diversified marketing strategy. There are different strategies on different platforms. Like Facebook is really good for targeting demographic groups, like women who have moved to the area, who have families, or women whose relationship status has changed from single to engaged. You bet your money they're going to want teeth whitening at some point before their wedding. And so and you can target people who play hockey, and because they're going to lose a tooth, but and you can do it just during hockey season.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's lots of interesting things you can do with demographics on Facebook. But what's more difficult with Facebook is to determine intent. So we know these people would make good patients, but why do they need a dentist now? They may have just gone to the dentist. They may have just replaced the tooth. You have no idea. And that's where Google AdWords and SEO do a better job, because you can, they're kind of the same thing. Google AdWords is just buying your way to the top, but for certain keyword terms, you want your practice's website and or ad or local listing to come up when people are looking for, dentists near me who can do dental implants, dental veneers in Denver, Colorado, or in Stapleton in Denver, Colorado. That's somebody who knows what they want. They have intent, and the time is right. So those are the kind of the three main online marketing, and really, the direct mail is probably the other one for all marketing that dentists engage in, if you don't count word of mouth. But they're very different in their application because of intent.
Yeah. So, as far as the largest mistakes that the DIYers or you even see other marketing companies doing, what do you feel like are some of the most common mistakes that the listeners should be avoiding when it comes to utilizing the website as a part of their marketing platform?
The biggest mistake, and one of the easier ones to fix, is issues at the front desk, and it may just be scheduling. It's always shocking when I hear, whenever I lecture, I'll ask people if they close for the lunch hour, and usually there's hands up. I'm like, all right, what time? 11, 12, 1, and the next graph I show is always calls to the office that we've accumulated through call tracking numbers during what time. And 1 o'clock is the busiest time, because that's when I guess most people have lunch and can call a dentist. And it's crazy to not answer your phone during the hour when most of your new patients are trying to reach you. Mm-hmm. That is nuts. Same thing with Friday, Saturday, Sunday. About 20% of all calls to a dental office will occur on those 3 days combined. That's basically like another Tuesday, which so a lot of dentists will say, well, I don't want to be in business 24/7. I want to work 4 days and play golf. This is why I got into this profession. I get it. But you can, even just getting something simple like a VoIP system or considering online booking, you don't have to open up your schedule to the wolves. There are controls you can put under that to force initial consultations. Nobody's going to be able to schedule a root canal for 15 minutes at 5 o'clock on a Friday. You can open up you can make your website more accessible to patients, and they have a better chance of even attempting to schedule. Having the front desk poorly trained and not really in the mindset to handle new patient calls, and it doesn't need a lot of training. There are courses you can get, you can take for this, or put your front desk through. We've seen dramatic changes with that, and oftentimes when that's one of the first things that comes up when we look at a poor performing campaign. And then we start listening to the calls, and we're like, and that's fortunate and for us, because it's means we didn't screw up, and it's an opportunity for the client to really dramatically improve their ROI, because that's all the way down the funnel. There's a lot of things that have happened since then. The first, did the ad move the person, or did the way that the link was written in Google to even consider clicking it? And then once they clicked it, did they see anything or read anything that convinced them to stay and read a little more? And after that, were they compelled enough with social proof, as you put on the website, through before and after gallery images or video testimonials for patients or reviews, to say, I want to call this office or email them and see if I can schedule an appointment or ask more questions? And so that last bit of getting to the front desk, they've already gone they've already climbed up the ladder several rungs, and like you don't want to blow it right at the end zone.
Yeah, that the people that are focusing on the conversion are the people that get it in my mind, because and I remember actually the same people I was talking to before that massively screwed up that one client, that one
Yeah.
person's AdWord link. We went to lunch and we talked about it, and he said, we have dental practices that will come and they'll leave us, and the reason, and he's like, and I don't get it, because we'll get them hundreds of calls and they won't stay with us, and we don't understand why. And that's the reason, is because they were probably getting the calls, but the dentist wasn't seeing any new patients because they weren't getting converted. There was no conversion. Yeah. So how do you guys tackle that? I mean, you mentioned you listen in. Do you do that with all our clients?
So you're burning through. Yeah, we do see what you described earlier about burning through cash with poorly configured campaigns. And that's most common with dentists who bought a fixed price ad solution from the phone company, and they just put the money in there, put it on autopilot, and they never touch it again. And that's usually not the best way to handle things. It's very rare that the autopilot settings used for all companies in that taxonomy, dentists, is going to work for your practice too. Everybody's a little different. The areas are different, and they're just usually doing blanket radius targeting. So you'll I grew up in Delaware. Delaware's a small place. I mean, you do radius targeting, you're into 3 different states. You're across a bridge that's a toll. Nobody's going over the bridge from New Jersey to come to a dentist, and very few people would be willing to do that unless they had some other reason for being in Delaware, like they work there and they're coming over anyway. But there's lots of things where people just kind of blindly turn on the settings, or using AdWords Express. That is not an effective product for dentists. It just needs more configuration. So to help measure ROI, there's a couple things that we do. We do listen to calls. We hire contractors to review calls and give us feedback. I don't know if we listen to 100% of the calls anymore, and that's mainly because we've tried to switch to more of an attribution model and measure ROI directly. We built some software that is installed on the dentist practice management software, and we'll look at and then we have a lot of tracking data from call tracking numbers and email tracking. So caller ID, phone number, all the contact info that's sent over in a contact form. We compare that to new patient appointments, and we see if there's a match. And if there's a match or a partial match, we have a little probability engine that does a good job of figuring out how likely someone is to be the same person that called. Then we report that revenue to the practice as their ROI. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong that we're trying to solve, but it'll never be 100% solvable. Like if you call from your office and it says dentist metrics, and then there's no person named dentist metrics. So when Jonathan Van Horn shows up, we're not going to catch that. That's an issue. Or if somebody calls up and schedules an appointment for they have a huge family and they have 10 kids, and they're like, yeah, I want to get the whole family in there. And it's like, well, all we're going to report is that one patient for the mom. We keep updating the software, but I think that's where the market's going to head, is to reporting confirming patients, because the software can pick that up automatically and assign it. And it's not 100%, but it's way better than before, where we just we would hear somebody. You'd have to listen to the calls manually and then hear them say, I'm scheduling an appointment, but you never know if they showed up. You don't know what they paid for. And going forward, you have no idea what that person was worth. And that's another thing that we see very common when dentists have pretty good numbers but not great numbers. We had a client a week ago that thought their pay-per-click campaigns weren't doing that great. And upon looking at them, they're doing really well, but we just had to take a different view of the data than they were thinking. And they weren't initially wrong. They just needed to expand the timeline that they're viewing it, because the first appointment would usually be a consultation. So they would, if you look at it okay, how much money did I spend in this month? How much revenue did I get from patients this month? It was low. But if you said, well, after the first consultation, this person booked several $1,000s for the dentistry over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, but they needed that initial consultation in order to do it. isn't that a better way to view this over like a quarter or 6 months? And when you open it up to that, then the ROI became tremendous. And a lot of that is due to, a large part of that is due to how effective the practice is at communicating and explaining treatment plans. So we can't take full credit for that, but that is the nature of that. You have to take a wider view. And I know that you and I have had conversations over the years about like lifetime patient revenue and how to calculate that. But you have to value the patients more than just the initial visit. And that we like trying to track the revenue as closely as possible over time, programmatically, as a way to do that.
Yeah, and that's something that I preach about to a lot of people, is that people will ask me, I don't really know how to do marketing, and this company has asked me to pay them this much money, and what do I need to look for in terms of what I get out of that? And it's usually it comes down to, what is the ROI? I mean, what are you getting for spending said money?
Yeah, we get those questions all the time, and those are fair questions and good to ask. And it's really difficult for dentists to evaluate SEO. And the analogy I always use is like weightlifting, because I went to the gym, I think last like Sunday or Saturday. So I lifted some weights. I'm a weightlifter. I could show up to court tomorrow, testify that I'm a weightlifter, and you could not find me guilty of perjury. I could bring you the logs from the gym that when I checked in. But then Arnold Schwarzenegger could come up right after me and say, I'm also a weightlifter. And you just look at the guy, even at like 65 or however old he is, you're like, that guy's a way better weightlifter than that first dude. And that's kind of the way SEO is, or marketing, really. Like you can check a box and buy a package of like SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, and you could buy the same thing from a different company for more money or less money or the same money and have wildly different results, because there's not really a standard. And dentists are, regulated by a board. You can't call yourself a dentist. It's a crime, I believe, in almost all states, or probably all states. It's a regulated, profession. And marketing is not like that. Anybody can just get out of bed one day and say, "Ta-da, I'm a marketer, and I do SEO now." And you start selling SEO. And so you can't just buy SEO and say, "Oh, I've checked the box. I have SEO. It's equivalent to everything else." You kind of have to trade on the reputation of the company. So I would really advise people trying to purchase marketing services for the dental practice to ask for references, and call those references. We'll give people as many names as they want, or tool around their website and find your own references. Just pick a couple people at random, and as a professional courtesy, especially if you're out of the area. Like, if some dentist from another state calls you, like, why not tell them that you have a good. If the person across the street calls, like, "Hey, is that company you're using really good?"
Yeah,
like,
they're trash.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, no, I got a lot of problems." But if somebody from a different state, like, who cares? So you got to do your due diligence. I would ask for reports, or we can give people general ideas of how it'll go, but it's really hard to talk about specifics, because a lot of it depends on how effective the office is. Like if somebody asked me, like, what is my ROI going to be on SEO? It's like, well, like, really, in order to answer that, I need to know how good your front desk is. And it would take quite a bit of research and testing to actually even wager a guess that was going to be close. We kind of approach things with a standard strategy that evolves over time. And every practice is a little different, because it does come down to the participation of the practice. We need an active partner that, as you said, will provide social proof. If they never record any testimonial videos, they don't do anything for their reviews, they begrudgingly fill out the copywriting form we give them to write about their practice. They never supply us bio pictures. I mean, having a bio picture is a huge inflection point for how much people will value the section about the practice. They want to kind of know. It's a very emotional decision purchasing dental services. You're going to hire somebody to stick their hands in your mouth, and you want to get a look at them. You're not buying hardwood flooring, and you're like, "Oh, what's the price? Did they not kill Brazilian rainforest? All right, fine. Then let's do it." So there's a lot that goes into it that's very situational for the practice and hard to predict.
There's a lot of people that have the thought that a marketing company. So it's almost the same with accounting, in that, I'm going to hire a marketing company and they're just going to do everything for me and everything is going to happen. And you see so many people out there tout that that's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's
You cannot just send a check and check out.
I know.
And if a company's telling you that just pay us the money and we have a magic pill and it's going to work, oh no, you're going to get a rude awakening, and it's going to happen after you spent tens of thousands of dollars. Practices need to be involved in like the creation of their brand and the creation of content that supports that. And we cannot come into your office cost effectively and record video testimonies of your patients. And you don't really want us to either. The most important thing for that is authenticity. And I'm fine if you just whip out your iPhone, and especially if you use like a little tripod or external microphone, and just record it. Like, it doesn't have to be high production value. That actually, I think, in some cases can detract from authenticity. But having a nice, gritty, real video, just did it live now, that's authentic. And that'll kind of move the needle for people who need social proof.
Absolutely. There are, and just also to touch on the point of the fly-by-nighters, so to speak, if you're listening now and you haven't realized this, there are literally courses you can take now that will teach you how to set up a Facebook ad to sell something such as SEO services, and then try and tell you, hey, you should target a niche such as dentist to sell this to because it's easier to market to.
Well, there's a lot of people that see dentists as like walking bags of money. And I grew up in a family of dentists, and so I just looked at them as my Uncle Dan, my Aunt Judy, my grandfather, Uncle Kevin, my dad, Uncle Joe, my brother. Everybody in my family were dentists. But you really have to train a reputation. It's like hiring an attorney to defend you in court. Every case is a little different. You can't guarantee results because we're trying to affect human behavior, a jury. We're trying to affect human behavior in marketing, patients, and you can't force them to buy. There's no slaves. You can't force them to show up. So you really have to trade on reputation. And I remember seeing a post on Dentaltown a week or two ago where someone's like, yeah, I got a random offer from student in a foreign country who offered to like help me out with my Facebook or social marketing. It's like, are you nuts? Like, this is a brand you have online that has value. It's one thing if it's like, it's a kid that's at the local school who's a patient or like one of your patient's kids, and you can like, they're going to come into the office and do some stuff under direction. But like, don't hand your keys off to your car to somebody to like, oh yeah, they're going to free, this random person offered to do a free detail on my car. So I left the keys for him, and left the garage open, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Man, you can't be that lax with your brand in your online real estate.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how many Facebook ads pop up that target me because I have dentist metrics in my Facebook, title.
Oh yeah, we get calls every week offering to design our website or do marketing. We're like, come on.
Well, thanks for the offer, guys.
You didn't even try.
Yeah. And the ads will be like, this is, here's how I got, $30,000 a month in implant cases for this doctor. And it's always like they say they did like one thing. And it's always like, well, it's not as simple as that. It is there are thousands of tactics that work. And that one tactic for that one guy probably won't work for you. And there's so many things that go around with it. So there are people out there that, that person probably paid another person money to teach them how to sell what they are selling, even if it doesn't exist.
There are definitely like people that you see where like these people all went to the same like marketing course.
Yeah.
Of like, step 1, like establish yourself as an expert. Mm-hmm. Like step 2, like get a couple like impressive examples and pretend that they are the norm. Because we have a client in Australia and I think I won't say where, but they are the cheapest pay-per-click ads that we have on the planet. I think it was a little higher this month, but I think one month they were getting new patients for like $7 Australian, so that's like $5 per new patient, and it was just insane. And that is unusual. Like we don't really bring that up to other clients because we don't have anybody else who's even close to that. They have a really unique situation. But and the thing that's hilarious is that the client has no idea what they're sitting on, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds so it's all right. And we're like, no, it's not all right. This is
Yeah,
world
it's
record setting,
amazing.
man.
Yes.
Like this is gold medal pay-per-click
Yeah.
ads, and they're like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Keep it going, lads. And we're like, oh, geez. But
Like we should open up more. You should open up more offices just to capitalize on how good this is.
they have a pretty big practice. The practices in Australia tend to be a little bit bigger on average, I think, with more dentists, which I think is a trend that the market's going in the U.S. But yeah, there's a lot. It's really easy for me as a marketer, if I wanted to pull out atypical patterns, or just like, the best month that a client had, and then ignore all the bad ones, and just show those to you as this is what you're going to get. And man, you gotta. I see dentists getting tricked, and I see that selling taking place, and it makes me uncomfortable. But we're an unregulated market in marketing, and I ultimately I'd probably prefer it that way. I'm more of a small government guy, but you really have to do your due diligence and assess reputation, figure out how long these companies have been in business. And yeah, if something's too good to be true, you really, really need to verify it even more than you normally would.
And then after you hire someone, you also have to make sure there's accountability circle there, that they're doing their job and you're doing the job to help them do their job.
Oh yeah, we have. I hear from new clients come in, especially during the sales process, where they have had no reporting for their marketing. They've just been paying money to somebody. They have no idea what they do, and sometimes like tens of thousands of dollars. And we're like, why? Why do you keep paying? Like, what do you think they're doing? They're like, we don't know. And you're like, come on, because you have to have some sort of regular reporting to give you an idea of what the activities are, and at least an idea of how the ROI is going. And some of that requires your intervention. Like as I mentioned with our ROI tool, it's not 100% accurate. Like we encourage clients to kind of check that against their own records, because usually they end up finding more revenue or patients that we failed to connect. But if you're not doing anything and you're just paying money to someone and hoping it works, I mean, the only clients I can think of that I would feel comfortable doing that with us would be like my dad. Like, he can trust his son. Not to mess up, but like other than that, like unless you have your son owns a marketing agency, like boy, you got to ask some questions and you got to ask for reports, and you should feel comfortable challenging them, and the company should say something that satisfies you, and you feel good about it.
So we've been talking about ROI quite a bit. Let's and one of the things that I think is pretty cool is that while you may have a cost for doing website design, there are you mentioned before the call a couple of tactics that can be utilized with smart website design to actually not necessarily give you an ROI on said expenditures, but it could lower your total economic outlay for utilizing said services.
Yeah, there's two things, and we got to have a tax tie-in on your podcast.
Yes.
So one is we've just gone through a process to make all of our sites ADA compliant. So we actually, I don't think we've publicly released this yet, but I think it's live within our systems now. We just haven't turned it on for any clients yet. But there is a provision of the American Disabilities Act that allows you to get a credit, not a deduction, of I think it's like $5,000 or like $5,500, something like that, every year. And one of the things that qualifies for this is media or your website. So if your website is ADA compliant, you can deduct all or a portion of your website costs, which is fantastic. I've always dreamed of being in the position of like Tesla, where like if you're priced out of Tesla, you go, when you price it, it tells you a cost, and then you actually like click into it, it's like, oh, it's actually way more that you have to pay up front, and then they're like calculating like federal tax incentives, state tax incentives, like future gas savings, which is kind of a stretch there. But the tax incentives are true, and you get them back relatively quickly. And we're now in the position that we can do that with dental websites, and to a limited extent marketing, to comply with ADA provisions. So that's one thing that I think dentists should look into or ask about. If you're a client of ours, ask your account manager about that, because by next month we should be on our way to roll that out. The other thing is putting your kids on the payroll. We have a lot of clients who have used their kids in their marketing. I'm not above using my own kids in marketing. They're all over my dad's website or a lot of our clients' pediatric stock photography is some of my kids.
Sure.
But and the best justification for this, I think, is if you want to buy exclusive use stock photography, you have to go to a place like Getty. And when you actually price out what it's going to cost, it will blow your mind. And of course, you can go to like iStock Photo and buy, a couple bucks for a stock photo that you can use, but you're going to see that everywhere else. You want something unique, which your kids are unique, and you have control of those photos. You can do that. You got to go to Getty. And I the last time I checked this, for like a picture of like one cute smiling kid like holding a toothbrush or something, great photo, exclusive use. For like 5 years, only 5 years, and only on a homepage. That was the license terms. They want like $1,800. And you're like, oh my God, that is quite expensive. And so you can justify putting your kids on the payroll if you use them in that manner. I know a lot of other people put their kids on the payroll and have them do something in the office, do charts. I remember I did all sorts of stuff at my dad's office when I was a little kid, and I remember like going through charts and like cleaning bathrooms and stuff. And my brothers and my sister do the same thing. So there's other ways to do it too, but I think that you can do that even with a very young child.
Very cool. Yeah. So just from a tax perspective, just to echo in on some of the comments, if you're
now you'll invalidate everything.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't think they were valid tactics. They may not be for everybody, but if you're listening out there and you're talking to your CPA, you're talking about the American Disability Act tax credit, they're going to be looking at Form 8826. The part that we're trying to qualify for with this is in the credit it states that qualified expenses are production of accessible formats or printed materials, or fees for consulting services under certain circumstances. That allows you to get a credit of 50% of expenditures up to $10,250. There's no credit for the first $250 of expenditures, so the maximum credit's $5,000. So that, if they're looking for it, it's Form 8826. They can read the instructions, and then they can make their own determination of if that tax credit is something that is available to you or not based off of the circumstances of what the provider gave you. In terms of the paying of the kids, yeah, one of the things you have to do in order to pay your kids, it's a common misconception under a lot of people's minds. They think they just pay their kids just to do almost nothing, which isn't true. You have to pay them what's considered a reasonable amount for whatever they've provided for you. And if an auditor ever brings that under question, what they'll say is, prove to us that what they did was worth what you paid them. And if you have something from your website design company that says it's a quote for 10 pictures of stock images to use on a website, and that those 10 pictures cost $18,000 in total, and you paid your kid $12,000, then obviously it was worth that. That's a pretty easy case to argue in that case. So these are valid tactics. Everyone's circumstance is a little bit different. Sometimes it's worth it for you to do it. Sometimes it's not worth it for you to do it. Talk to your CPA. This is not tax advice. This is Jeff and I talking and telling you things that you might want to explore a little bit more. So Mr. Mel Practice Carrier, you're out there listening. In case you're out there listening. So yeah, but those are cool.
I would lean on Jonathan's advice over mine on that.
So there are that. All that being said, that is a way to reduce your cost, your total investment in getting this stuff up and going. And whenever you're considering making that leap into this the world of marketing inside of your dental practice, those are the different things that can help you move one way or the other. So Jeff, as far as your wealth of knowledge, is there anything else that you'd want to share with us before we wrap up today?
That's a very open-ended question. That's left me paralyzed by
okay?
Choice.
Let's make this. Then I'll phrase it as this is the lightning round. What is one thing that you would think that people need to know that we haven't talked about today?
We did talk about it, but I think the two easiest things for a practice to do to move the needle on their own marketing is to create testimonial videos from their patients and to create some sort of review strategy. we need that. Those often form like the meat that, or the clay that the marketing company needs to form a cohesive marketing campaign. And they're usually prerequisites into having, really effective performance in marketing campaigns. They don't have to be, and they aren't always, but they always help. And it's something that you can do for free. If you just ask patients to leave reviews, there's automated programs that you can use. I like one called Social Review Wizard, but Bird Eye, Podium are very popular. Best Local Reviews is used. Yappy has one. Opera DDS has them. Almost everybody has a review platform these days. I like ones that are automated and dip into the PMS, so you just turn it on and forget about it.
Mhm.
But those are really cost-effective, cheap things that you can do, and especially, and if you start building up content now, Rome wasn't built in a day. But if you're a practice and you're doing nothing and you want to get started on a path and have amazing marketing results, you need to start developing your content, and before and after cases, video testimonials, videos of you speaking to the patient. I made my dad do this, and he, probably recorded a net of like 15 minutes of video of himself, or a total rather, maybe less than that, maybe 10. And then there's a bunch of video testimonials on there. And I think he really didn't want to do it. I thought it was a waste of time. His exact words to me were, "Jeff, nobody on the internet wants to watch me talk about teeth." And he was right, because only like 1,000 people viewed his videos. But what conversion rate do you need for people viewing these videos to make it worth it? Would 10%? That's 100 new patients for call it 2 hours of his time with all in. How about 5%? That's 50 new patients. How about just 3% or 2%? That's 20 to 30 new patients. How much would that be worth to you? Is that worth an hour or two of your time? I think it is. And so that's one thing I think that I wish all dentists would do, and not all of them do.
Very cool. Well, Jeff, so if anyone is out there listening today and is like, you know what, my website needs help, or I need help with marketing, what's a way for them to be able to contact you, contact your company, or just get in touch?
Yeah, just go to greatdentalwebsites.com, fill out the contact form, or give us a ring. We're pretty responsive. We'll talk to you. We'll give you free advice, and we'll tell you what's wrong, and you can either fix it or help, or hire us to help you. That's always been my approach to sales. I was trained as an electrical engineer. There's very little sales training in those courses. There's very little business training at all. But our approach has always been to just tell people the truth and hope they like us. And sometimes that takes a while for them to come back, but that's okay. I'd rather just be brutally honest with people and hope they like it. And that tends to lead to a good fit, good client fit too. So yeah, if you want our advice, we've done this for 12 years. We have over 750 clients in 6 countries. We'd be happy to help you too. I'm sure we can help almost any practice.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thanks so much for your time, guys. If you're listening out there, I do urge you to reach out to Jeff. He is a wealth of information, and he's a good friend of the podcast. So if anything else, just thank him for coming on today. And I appreciate you, Jeff, again, for all of your wealth and wisdom that you give to the dental community freely, which is you've been a mainstay for a long time, and I'm sure for a long time to come. So, Jeff, until next time, we appreciate you, and we'll see you guys last time.
Happy to do it. Dental community's been good to me too. Thanks again for having me on. Thanks everybody for listening.
All right, bye guys. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice.